at 11:30 a.m. On March 10, a construction crew was hard at work installing prefabricated stairs on a residential site. One of the workers, needing to reach the second floor of the house, began climbing up the incomplete stairway framing. Suddenly, the framing gave way and the worker slipped, falling approximately 10 feet onto the concrete floor of the basement area below. Tragically, the worker sustained a fatal skull fracture from the fall. OSHA's investigation into this incident uncovered serious gaps in the employer's adherence to stairway and ladder safety standards, which could have prevented the tragic outcome. According to 1926.501(b)(13), employers must provide fall protection for workers exposed to heights of 6 feet or more. However, in this case, no fall protection was in place despite the open stairway, leaving workers vulnerable to a fatal hazard. The absence of guardrails or harnesses left the worker unprotected in a dangerous situation. Additionally, OSHA found that the employer had not provided adequate training to ensure employees could recognize and manage fall hazards associated with stairways and ladders. Workers lacked crucial knowledge on how to navigate this type of incomplete framing safely, increasing the risk of serious accidents. Further, OSHA investigators noted that the employer had not implemented a safer access method, such as a secured ladder or temporary stairway, for reaching the second floor. This lack of proper access increased the temptation to climb unsafe structures, as workers sought ways to complete tasks quickly. This case highlights the devastating consequences of failing to implement OSHA's stairway and ladder safety requirements on construction sites. Adequate fall protection, thorough safety training, and secure means of access are critical to prevent falls and protect workers' lives. On November 5, a worker at a large hardware store chain was restocking shelves using a mobile rolling ladder. While carrying a heavy box, the employee climbed the ladder and stopped midway to reach over the side rail and place the item on an upper shelf. Leaning over the rail, the worker lost their balance, falling backward down the ladder. The impact from the fall led to fatal injuries to the employee's head and neck. OSHA's investigation revealed a crucial oversight. The employer had not documented any fall protection training for employees working with ladders. Under OSHA standards, employers are required to ensure that workers receive adequate training to identify and avoid fall hazards, especially when using mobile ladders. Training helps employees understand the dangers of reaching or leaning beyond safe boundaries and reinforces safe work practices to prevent falls. Although mobile ladders are common in retail and warehouse environments, they still pose significant risks when misused or used without proper precautions. In this case, the absence of documented training meant that the worker may not have been aware of safe ladder practices, such as maintaining 3 points of contact with the ladder and avoiding overreaching. This incident highlights the importance of OSHA's fall protection training requirements for mobile ladder use, even when fall heights seem manageable. Comprehensive training empowers workers to make safe choices and is critical to preventing such tragic accidents. Employers must also document this training to ensure that every worker is informed and prepared to operate safely in all work environments. On December 1 at 1:15 in the afternoon, a siding contractor's employee was using a 32-foot fiberglass extension ladder to install an ornamental downspout on a residential building. Positioned approximately 16 feet above ground, the worker had set up the ladder with its base more than 7 feet away from the wall. As the employee climbed and continued working, the ladder's unsafe angle caused them to lose balance, and they fell onto the concrete driveway below, sustaining a fatal skull fracture. OSHA's investigation identified multiple safety violations that contributed to the fatal incident. Most importantly, the contractor had failed to ensure that the worker's ladder was positioned at an appropriately safe angle. According to OSHA's requirements for using extension ladders safely, the base of a ladder should be positioned no more than 1/4 of the ladder's working length away from the wall, or approximately 4 feet in this case. The worker's ladder was positioned nearly double this safe distance, creating an unstable base that increased the risk of tipping or slipping, 29 CF or 1926.1053(b)(5)(I). Additionally, OSHA found that the employer had neglected to provide essential fall protection training specific to ladders and stairways. OSHA standards require that all employees be trained on ladder safety to help them recognize risks, maintain proper ladder positioning, and practice safe climbing techniques, 29 CF or 1926.1060(a). Without this knowledge, workers are far more vulnerable to dangerous missteps and misusing equipment. Compounding these issues, the employer also failed to meet OSHA's reporting requirements, neglecting to report the employee's death within the mandatory 24-hour period. Prompt reporting ensures that OSHA can quickly investigate incidents to improve workplace safety for others, 29 CFR 1904.39(a)(2). This case underscores the importance of following OSHA's ladder safety regulations, ensuring safe ladder angles, and providing comprehensive fall protection training to prevent similar tragedies. Proper equipment setup and training are crucial to protecting workers' lives while working at heights. On September 4th, at 3 p.m., an employee at a salvage yard was conducting routine defueling of vehicle gasoline tanks when disaster struck. Flammable gasoline vapors from the defueling area collected near the ground surface, where torch cutting operations were taking place nearby. The sparks from the torch ignited the vapors, resulting in a sudden explosion that tragically claimed the worker's life. OSHA's investigation of the incident identified several federal safety violations, underscoring critical gaps in the employer's fire protection measures. First, OSHA requires all fire hazards to be removed from areas where work like torch cutting may generate sparks. In this case, the employer failed to ensure the work area was free from such hazards, exposing employees to a highly combustible environment. OSHA also found that the employer allowed torch cutting in an area where gasoline vapors were present, a clear violation of safety standards for work performed near flammable vapors. This decision greatly increased the likelihood of ignition and highlighted the employer's lack of adequate safety planning. The investigation also revealed that the employer had not relocated combustible materials to a safe distance of at least 35 feet from the work site. Instead, the worker who died had been defueling vehicle gas tanks near torch cutting operations, creating an environment ripe for fire and explosion. Additionally, the employer's failure to conduct a thorough hazard assessment was another significant oversight. Employers must perform hazard assessments before authorizing any work involving fuel handling and work that may generate heat or sparks, yet in this case, no such assessment was conducted. Lastly, oxygen cylinders were being stored near highly combustible fuel gas cylinders, a proximity that heightens the risk of explosive reactions. This tragic incident underscores the vital importance of following OSHA's fire protection guidelines, especially in high-risk operations involving flammable materials. Regular hazard assessments, strict control of combustible materials, and safe storage of fuel sources are essential to preventing such devastating workplace accidents. On the afternoon of September 20th, a routine tank cleaning task at a pest control company became a tragic reminder of the importance of proper fire protection and emergency retrieval measures. At 2 p.m., an employee was tasked with draining residual brine water from an 8-foot deep, 10,000-gallon fiberglass tank previously used to store gasoline. However, after entering the tank, the worker began operating a power drill, which caused sparks that ignited lingering gasoline fumes. The explosion that followed completely engulfed the worker, fatally burning them. OSHA's investigation revealed that the incident stemmed from a series of critical oversights in fire protection and confined space safety protocols. Chief among these was the absence of a forced air ventilation system, which could have removed the hazardous fumes before work began. The employer also failed to perform the required atmospheric testing to confirm that the environment within the tank was safe to enter. Adequate fire protection in confined spaces is essential, particularly when flammable materials may be present. OSHA requires employers to take specific steps to eliminate fire hazards in such spaces, including purging, inerting, flushing, or ventilating, yet none of these were implemented. Nor did they provide continuous atmospheric monitoring to detect any dangerous changes in air quality. Furthermore, OSHA mandates that employers must use constant monitoring equipment when workers enter confined spaces with flammable substances, but the employer neglected this requirement as well. In addition, OSHA found that the employer had failed to ensure that a suitable mechanical device was in place for emergency retrieval in the event of a fire. Instead, the company relied on a synthetic rope, which is prohibited in potentially high-temperature environments because it may burn or fail under heat. Compounding these failures, the supervisor allowed the entry without verifying that all permit requirements for confined space entry had been met. This case illustrates the dangers of failing to adhere to OSHA's fire protection and confined space regulations, underscoring the importance of ventilation, monitoring, and emergency preparedness. On July 19, at 7:15 a.m., a routine operation at a manufacturing facility turned catastrophic. 3 employees were tasked with replacing an empty 55-gallon drum of paint reducer with a full one. As they moved the pump equipment from the empty drum to the new one, an unknown ignition source set off a flash fire, rapidly followed by an explosion fueled by the flammable vapors. The incident resulted in the hospitalization of 5 employees, severe burns for 3 of them, and the tragic loss of 2 lives. OSHA's investigation revealed that the employer's disregard for essential fire protection measures in handling flammable liquids contributed significantly to the accident. First, the facility stored nearly 550 gallons of Category 2, 3, and 4 flammable liquids, more than 4 times the legally permitted amount of 120 gallons. Proper storage limits on flammable materials reduced the risk of life-threatening fires. By exceeding them, the employer had set the stage for a disaster. Adding to the hazard, containers holding these flammable liquids were left open while workers performed other operations, allowing vapors to escape into the workspace. Compounding this issue, the employer failed to ensure that workers used non-sparking tools for removing and installing bungs and siphon connections on the barrels, a crucial precaution to prevent accidental ignition. OSHA also found that workers used polyurethane reducer for pump cleaning without bonding or grounding the equipment, a necessary step to avoid static buildup, which was a likely cause of this fire and subsequent explosion. Additionally, employees had not been trained in critical safety procedures for grounding and bonding or handling flammable liquids, leaving them unprepared for these dangers. This case illustrates the severe consequences of overlooking OSHA's fire protection requirements, particularly when handling flammable substances. Adhering to storage limits, using proper tools, and providing thorough safety training are essential steps to prevent such tragic incidents.